Giving up. If everything in life was as simple as giving up is the ultimate instant gratification. It's as if you took the ripest, most delicious banana you could find, loaded it up with a ton of butter and sugar, and fed it to your instant gratification monkey. And the best part is you have an endless supply of these buttery, sugar-laden bananas to feed the greedy little guy. But we all know where that ends, right? Before you know it, all the little bastard wants to do is just eat more and more of these diabetes-inducing bananas. And now he's getting sick from all the fat and sugar, and now you gotta take him to the doctor. And anyway, before we go down too deep into that rabbit hole filled with monkeys and bananas, let's just understand that while very enticing, giving up is generally not a great strategy for life. So, today we're going to learn how to turn a difficult or even painful experience that makes you want to just give up and your instant gratification monkey to beg for more of these excessively absurd bananas into something that you might eventually enjoy. Heck, it might even become your favorite thing. And we're gonna do this by employing a little known but exceedingly successful psychological principle called the snowboarding method. System for not willfully bandying or arguing directly with your instant gratification. Yeah, no, I'm totally making this up. I'm just gonna use my first time snowboarding as an analogy. Let's begin. When I was a teenager, snowboarding was the coolest thing in the world for me. But growing up in the tropics, there wasn't much snow to be had. After I moved to the US and saw my first real snowboard in person, I was in love. I really wanted to do this. Eventually, I got my first opportunity to go snowboarding. A group of friends who were all somewhat experienced in skiing and snowboarding decided on a whim that we would go to one of the ski resorts in nearby Pennsylvania the very next day. I was so excited, but I was also not prepared. I didn't know what to expect. I didn't have the right clothing, and I probably didn't realistically set my expectations by watching the Zach Galifianakis movie Out Cold the night before. Snowboarding can be a great analogy for life. From afar, it looks like so much fun, and the people doing it make it seem so effortless that it makes you just want to go for it. But when you finally step up to the plate, sorry for mixing my sports metaphors here, it's the complete opposite. Even the bunny hill, the flattest part of the ski resort that's basically for toddlers, feels like Matterhorn. You try to get up and now your feet are trapped in this thing that you can't even begin to fathom how to control, and it starts to move in unexpected directions at a speed that feels reckless, despite only being a leisurely walking pace. And so, you end up simply throwing yourself on the ground so you can stop this madness before it gets even more out of control. Turns out snowboarding, just like life, is actually quite hard, and most of the experience is completely subjective. For example, when I went to get my snowboarding boots fitted that first day, both my friends and the kid behind the boot counter told me the boots had to be tight. Really? I asked. How tight? Tight, they all responded in unison. So your feet don't move. Huh. I don't know anything about this, and they do, so I guess they're right. Only problem was my brain interpreted their definition of tight so your feet don't move as so tight it'll severely reduce your circulation and make your feet go numb. Because I was nervous and saw them as an authority on the matter, I ignored what my own body was telling me. The rest of the day was a mixture of misery, numb feet, and excruciatingly painful banged up knees. I remember it so vividly. That awful sensation of still being halfway up the mountain, knowing I still had such a long way to go, so I had to get up and keep going. But getting up meant the imminent demise of my severely bruised knees. When I eventually started going way too fast and unable to control anything, had to throw myself on the ground once again. And then realized I barely gained any ground and was still halfway up the mountain. Did I really just defy the laws of physics and manage to go up the mountain? Needless to say, when I made it to the bottom of the hill, I took off that diabolic instrument of torment, sat on one of the long chairs, and with tears in my eyes, a knot in my throat, and every inch of my body in pain, I simply said to myself, fuck this. And it crushed me. This thing I've been dreaming about for years had suddenly become a nightmare. So I gave up. Shortly after that, I met Laura. Not only was she the coolest person ever, but she was also a seasoned skier and snowboarder. She'd been a snow person her whole life. Her parents even considered moving out to Colorado when she was little so she could pursue it more seriously. But that's not the point. The point is that she encouraged me to try again. But I still remember the pain. The mere thought of it made my knees tremble with fear. They had taken the most punishment. There was no way I was going to voluntarily put myself or my poor knees through that again. So, like the true 80s kid that I am, I turned to early 90s movies to find a solution. Remember that Seth Green movie Airborne? See those? Those are some awesome knee pads. And if they can keep these kids from busting up their knees on straight up concrete, they'll certainly work on snow. So I bought a pair and put them on under my newly acquired snow pants. And off we went. This time was different though. I had the right clothing. I had my awesomely bulky but still terrific knee pads. And I had Laura. She was patient and kind.
Bye, have fun.
She taught me to dig in my heels to slow down if I felt I was losing control. She encouraged me to get up and try again, but most importantly, she reminded me that getting started is the hardest part because it requires the most effort but generates the least amount of fun. But as you keep going, as you keep doing it, that graph slowly starts to change until eventually most of the effort disappears and you're left with the simple joy of doing. Anything worth doing in life is probably going to present a similar situation. So here's what I think our approach should be. Number one, remember that your life and your experience is unique to you. It's fine to listen to other people's advice and experiences, but always remember that's all it is. It's their experience, and it will be different from yours. Listen to yourself or your gut or whatever organ in your body makes the most noise, and use all of that information to make a decision that works for you. Number two, find your person. A parent, a teacher, a mentor, a spouse, someone who cares about you and your success. They don't have to be an expert. Just because someone is an expert doesn't mean they're right for you. Yes, we should all be so lucky to have a Laura, a kind, patient, knowledgeable person who's willing to show you the ropes. But of course, that's not always realistic. So just try to find someone who will encourage you to get up and try again. Find your person. Number three, also find your knee pads. Figure out which part hurts the most and find that one thing that will cushion the blow so you can keep going. And number four, remember that when you first start out and don't know what you're doing, it will take a lot of effort and produce very little fun. But as you continue to do it, as you continue to improve, that graph will inverse and it will eventually be lots of fun with very little effort. You just have to get over that critical tipping point. If you do, I promise you might even get to love that one thing as much as I love snowboarding. You hear that? That's the sound of pure joy.